Hello, my dear students. How are you? I hope you all are fine in your home. Now, I am going to continue the chapter Matter in Our Surroundings. In this chapter, I have taken few video clips, and with the help of practical, you will learn what is matter and their properties. Okay, students, let's move.
Hi friends, do you know what I just did? I just took in the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and air, a gas. So are you ready to explore the three states of matter with me? And then we'll finish off with our top three questions on this topic. I'm sure you're familiar with the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. When we look at something, our brain automatically knows, is it a solid, liquid, or a gas? In this video, we are going to compare these three states of matter in a more scientific way. So we'll compare them based on these four properties: shape and volume, compressibility, rigid or fluid, and do they fill their container completely. After that, we'll take a deeper look into solids, liquids, and gases and compare them at a particle level. Let's start with solids. Do solids have a fixed shape? Yes. As you can see here, they have a fixed shape. This is a cuboid, this is a cube, this is a sphere, and my watch has a irregular shape. So for solids, the shape does not change. Now, do solids have a fixed volume? Again, the answer is yes, because the space that the solids occupy does not change. The volume is fixed, and we can calculate that volume. For example, the volume of a cuboid is length into breadth into height. The volume of a cube is a cube. The volume of a sphere is 4 by 3 pi r cube. Now, how do you calculate the volume of my watch, which has an irregular shape? That's right, by Archimedes' liquid displacement technique. If I dip this watch in water, then the volume of the watch is the volume of the water it displaces. I actually have a video on Archimedes' liquid displacement technique, so do check it out. Now let me pull out my watch before it stops working. Let's look at the compressibility of solids. Usually solids are difficult to compress. For example, I can't compress the things on the table here. So if I try to take this cube and I try to press it, I can't compress this cube here. There are some exceptions, like a sponge. We'll talk about that towards the end of the video. Are solids rigid or fluid? That's right, the correct answer is rigid, because they have a fixed shape. Fluids are things that can flow. Now, do solids fill their container completely? For example, if I try to put this ball in this container here, does it fill the container completely? The answer is no. Let's add the properties of solids to our concept board. Now let's take a look at liquids. Liquids have a fixed volume but no fixed shape. I'm going to prove these 2 points to you with one single experiment here. For the experiment, I've taken water in this beaker, and as you can see, there's 100 ml of water here. Now I'm going to transfer this water into this container, this one, and this one. And you carefully take a look, what is the change in volume and shape of the liquid. So are you ready? Let's start. Now I'm going to transfer the water from this beaker into this bottle here. And then I'll transfer it to the glass here. Now let's transfer it to the measuring cylinder. So what is the final volume here? As you can see, it's 100 ml, and that's exactly the original volume. So what's the conclusion from our experiment? Liquids have a fixed volume. It was 100 ml all the way through. But they don't have a fixed shape. As you saw in the experiment, the liquid takes the shape of the container it is put in. Let's talk about the compressibility of liquids. If you take a plastic bottle like this containing water, if I try to crush this bottle, it looks like I can compress the water. So are liquids compressible? The answer is no. When I'm crushing it, am I really compressing the water? No, I'm compressing the air inside the bottle. Now if we fill this bottle completely with water, I need to be Superman to be able to crush this bottle. So liquids are almost incompressible, just like solids. Are liquids rigid or fluid? That's right. The correct answer is fluid. The word fluid means it can flow easily. As you can see, water can flow easily. So liquids are fluids. Do liquids fill their container completely? The answer is no. As you can see, in the glass and the bottle, the water only occupies its own volume. The rest of the container is air. So liquids do not fill their container completely. Let's place the properties of liquids on our concept board. Now let's take a look at the third state of matter, gases. Gases have neither a fixed shape nor a fixed volume. Just like liquids, gases take the shape of the container that they are in. One difference is the container needs to be closed. Now liquids have a fixed volume, but gases don't even have a fixed volume. The volume of the gas is the volume of the container. So for example, if I transfer this gas into a larger container, it will fill that container completely. Or if we apply some pressure and try to fit it into a smaller container, then the volume of the gas will be the volume of the smaller container. That brings us to the next point, compressibility. Gases are highly compressible. For example, I can easily squeeze this balloon, or I can easily crush the air in this bottle. Gases are usually stored under high pressure since they are highly compressible. That way we can fit more of the gas in a small container. For example, compressed natural gas is stored in cylinders at a high pressure. Just like liquids, gases are also fluids. They can flow. For example, if I open this bottle, can you see the air flowing out? Of course you can't, because air is colorless. But let's say it was a colored gas, then you would easily see it flowing out of the bottle. In fact, the term fluid is collectively used for liquids and gases. As we discussed before, gases are greedy. They want to fill up the container completely. For example, if this bottle contained a gas and I transferred it to a larger container, then the gas would fill up the larger container completely. Another example is when you open a perfume bottle in a room, the smell spreads to the entire room. So here the room is like a container to the perfume gas. So gases fill their container completely. Now let's pin the properties of gases to our concept board. We have discussed the difference in properties between solids, liquids and gases. But what makes something a solid, a liquid or a gas? For example, if you take water, it can exist in all three forms: ice, water and water vapor. Now, it's the same substance, water. So how can it exist as a solid and a liquid and sometimes a gas? To answer this question, we need to zoom into matter and take a closer look. As you may already know, all matter, whether solid, liquid or gas, is made up of tiny, tiny particles. For example, ice, water and water vapor are all made up of the same tiny particles. That is the water molecules. Now let's compare the three states of matter at a particle level based on these 3 points: the distance between the particles, the force of attraction between the particles, and the amount of movement or the kinetic energy of the particles. To get a visual feel of things, I would like you to hold up your hands like this and imagine the tips of your fingers as particles. So are you ready? So this is what a solid would look like. The particles are tightly packed. The distance between the particles is very small. The force of attraction between the particles is very strong. So you have to apply a huge force if you want to change the shape of the solid. Even in a solid, the particles are moving, vibrating about their main positions. But their movement is less. Kinetic energy of the particles is small. Now this is what a liquid would look like. The particles are more loosely packed. The distance between the particles is bigger. The force of attraction between particles is weaker. In a liquid, the particles have more motion as compared to a solid. So the kinetic energy of particles is larger. And now this is a gas. The particles are very loosely packed. The distance between the particles is very large. Force of attraction between particles is very weak. In a gas, the particles are moving a lot. They are going crazy. The kinetic energy of the particles is maximum. Let's add the differences between solids, liquids and gases based on particles on our concept board. Now that we are done with the 3 states of matter, are you ready for the top 3 questions on this topic coming up for you right now? As we discussed, solids are incompressible. But if you consider a sponge, as you can see, we can easily compress it. So question 1 is, the sponge is a solid. Then why is it compressible? Let me give you a hint. The sponge has holes in it. So what are you really compressing? Now let's look at question 2. I'm going to pour the sugar in this beaker into the glass here. Can you see the sugar flowing like water? And the sugar is taking the shape of the glass. So is sugar a solid or a liquid? The 3 states of matter that we've seen in this video are solid, liquid and gas. Do you know that there are 2 more states of matter? So question 3 is going to be, what are the other 2 states of matter? Can we make this more interactive than just watching the video? So do post your answers to the questions, or if you have any doubts, in the comments below. And I promise to reply to all your comments promptly. I hope the 3 states of matter are crystal clear to you now. So remember, this is a solid, this is a liquid, and this is a gas. And here's the like button.
Hello dear students, I hope you enjoyed a lot with real life examples and their experiments. Now I am moving towards next part. In this part we will study what is evaporation, boiling point, latent heat and so many points with experiments. Let's move.
Hi friends. Have you ever wondered how do wet clothes get dry when you hang them out like this? Where does the water in the clothes go? It goes into the air as water vapor. So water is changing its state from liquid to gas. You may already know that changing the state from liquid to gas is known as boiling. So is the water in these clothes boiling? Obviously not. Then what is this process known as? That's right, it's called evaporation, and that will be the topic for this video. And at the end, we'll finish off with our top 3 questions on this topic. One example of evaporation is drying of clothes. Let's look at some other simple everyday examples of evaporation. Can you identify what is the evaporation in the pictures here? The puddles of water formed on the road after rain disappear after some time. Why? Because the water evaporates. The liquid water changes into water vapor. We know that a perfume bottle should be closed tightly, because if it is left open for a long time, the perfume will disappear. Since perfume evaporates quickly, the liquid perfume changes to perfume vapors. The sweat from our body evaporates and helps to cool down our body. The water evaporates from the seas and oceans, and this water vapor rises up and forms clouds and comes down later as rain or snow. So the water cycle works with the help of evaporation. Let's compare boiling and evaporation. Examples of boiling are boiling of water or boiling of milk. What is common to boiling and evaporation? That's right. In both of these, liquid state is changing to vapor state. Now, what do you think are the differences here? The first difference is based on temperature. Now, which one do you think needs a higher temperature? That's right, it's boiling. Boiling takes place at or above a fixed temperature known as boiling point. For example, the boiling point of water is 100 degrees centigrade. But evaporation can take place at any temperature below the boiling point. So water in the lakes, rivers, puddles and our clothes can evaporate at any temperature below 100 degrees centigrade. The next important difference is boiling is a bulk phenomena and evaporation is a surface phenomena. Now, what do these terms mean? Here we are trying to take a look where exactly in the liquid the process is taking place. Bulk phenomena means the entire liquid is trying to boil. As you can see here, the entire water is trying to boil at the same time. So boiling is a bulk phenomena. But in evaporation, only the water molecules on the surface of the liquid are changing to vapor state. So evaporation is taking place only on the surface of the liquid. Hence evaporation is a surface phenomena. Only those particles that have enough kinetic energy, that is the energy of motion, can escape from the surface and evaporate. The next difference is based on time. Which process do you think is faster? That's correct. Boiling is a rapid process, but evaporation is a slow process. And thankfully, otherwise on a hot summer day, all the ponds and the lakes would evaporate and disappear. For example, if you boil 100 ml of water, it's probably going to change into vapor in minutes. But if you take 100 ml of water and just let it be there and evaporate, it's probably going to take hours. The last difference is evaporation causes a cooling effect, but boiling does not cause a cooling effect. We'll talk more about the cooling effect later in the video. Let's place the 4 differences between boiling and evaporation on our concept board. Now let's look at the factors affecting the rate of evaporation. That means how fast the evaporation is taking place. To discuss these factors, we are going to use these 2 identical shirts taken out from the washing machine. So they are equally wet. Now let's hang one shirt in a crushed way like this, and the other shirt is in a spread out manner like this. Which shirt do you think will dry first? That's right, it's going to be the blue shirt here. Because from our experience we know the more we spread out the clothes, the faster they dry. So increasing the surface area increases the rate of evaporation. Since liquid molecules get more area to evaporate. Now let's spread out both the shirts in the same way. But let's say we keep the red shirt out on a hot summer day and the blue shirt is kept out on a cold winter day. Which shirt do you think will dry first? Obviously the one on a hot summer day. The higher the temperature, the higher will be the rate of evaporation. Now, why is that? Because higher temperature means that the average kinetic energy of the water particles in this shirt is more than this shirt. So, more number of water particles have enough kinetic energy to change into vapor state and evaporate in this shirt as compared to this one. If the two shirts are kept at the same temperature, but one where there is a lot of wind and one shirt where there is no wind, which one do you think will dry first? That's right, it's going to be the blue shirt getting more wind. Now, why is that? Because with increase in wind speed, the water vapor will move away with the wind. So that decreases the amount of water vapor in the surroundings for this shirt, and so the rate of evaporation increases. You might have done this before where we put clothes under the fan for them to dry faster. Now if the two shirts are kept at the same temperature, but one in a place where the humidity is low and the other in a place where the humidity is high. First, let's understand the meaning of humidity. Humidity means the amount of water vapor present in the air. At a particular temperature, the air can hold only a certain amount of water vapor. So which one do you think will dry first? That's right, it's the one where the humidity is low. Because where the humidity is high like this one, the air doesn't want more water vapor from your shirt. So lesser the humidity, the rate of evaporation is going to be higher. Let's place the four factors affecting the rate of evaporation on our concept board. Now let's talk more about this point, evaporation causes cooling. I'm sure you've experienced cooling due to evaporation. Can you give me some examples? When you go to the doctor for vaccination, the doctor cleans your hand by putting spirit. Doesn't your hand feel cool? Now why is that? Because the spirit quickly evaporates from your hand and makes it feel cool. Another example is when you're running or you're exercising, our body naturally sweats. The water droplets evaporate from our body and helps cool it down. So sweating is our body's natural mechanism to make us feel cooler. Now let's analyze why evaporation causes cooling. During evaporation, the liquid is changing into a gas. For example, the sweat water droplets change into water vapor. To do this, they need to absorb energy from the surroundings. And the surroundings is our body in this case. The heat energy needed for the state change from liquid to gas is known as latent heat of vaporization. So during evaporation, heat energy is absorbed from the surroundings, giving rise to a cooling effect. I hope the concept of evaporation is clear to you now. I would encourage you to look around in your everyday lives and see what examples of evaporation you can find. Do let me know what you find.